Mate, how does that, how do you internalize all of that? Like, I'm guessing you're a pretty strong human and you've seen a lot of grief in your life. Does that knock you around for a while, mate, seeing all that stuff?
Oh, it certainly moves the needle. You can't spend days carrying the bodies of dead children in your arms and not be affected. And it's an impact that and the work that we did will live with you forever. And I talk about it though. The most difficult times I faced was dealing with the relatives of those who died. But the most rewarding times I spent was dealing with the relatives of those who died.
Welcome to the Find Your Influence podcast. This episode, proudly sponsored by the Guinea Group of Companies, an organisation that helps leaders upgrade their mindset, upskill their leadership, and uplift their teams. If you would like the opportunity to sponsor an episode of our podcast, please reach out to the team at the Guinea Group, theguineagroup.com.au, the team at theguineagroup.com.au. Can't wait to hear from you. And if you would like to be a podcast guest, click on the information sheet that is available on the podcast page. So, team, thanks for tuning in and listening wherever you are or watching this. Great. This is going to be the best podcast episode ever. There you go. Baines and I spoke on the same card probably, I reckon, 10 years ago, Pete?
It'd have to be, yeah.
Have to be, wouldn't it? Cannington
Yep.
Mine, mate.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Living in a donga. In a donga.
That's right. But didn't we have the big tent too? Didn't they put a big tent out there on the oval?
That's right. Yeah.
Safety day, I think it was. Mate, this sort of work takes us all over the place, eh?
Yeah.
And I've got to tell you, for our audiences listening out there, you're going to hear, I hope, Bainesy, I know that you're going to talk about more Thailand stuff now, but it's okay if we talk a bit about your backstory a little bit when we get to it. Is that okay? Is that still all right? Still a topic of
Your
conversation?
podcast, mate. You can talk about wherever you want to go with it.
Legend. Thanks, champion. I got to tell you, for all our listeners out there, still, and Bainesy, I haven't said this to anyone else, you'll see, you tell everyone else that, the most memorable talk I've ever heard, bar none, on the planet.
Thank you, mate.
You'll go, oh, well, prove it. What do you remember? Can I tell you, I've still got on the top of my playlist Gary Jules.
Yeah, right. Mad World, yeah.
Mad World, brother. Never forget that song, man.
Yeah.
Never forget. And that footage that you had and the way you presented that story. And this is the number that I remember, and I don't think it's the right one. 5,478. That's the number that I say.
Yep, close enough.
Good. Now, there you go, mate. So that's how memorable that talk was.
Yeah, good on you, mate.
Thank you. And why don't we, Bainesy, just for all our listeners' benefit, why don't we just tell people that quick story? Because I think it's really part of the backstory and how you ended up the Peter Baines that you are today. Yeah,
sure. So what you're referring to, obviously, is the Thailand tsunami, or the Boxing Day tsunami 2004. And there would be, across that region, there would be somewhere between 250 and 300,000 people who would lose their lives. And in Thailand, we recovered the bodies of 5,395 and would be there for close to 12 months as a commitment, as a deployment, identifying the bodies and repatriating them throughout the world. And the reason I found myself in that space was my trade, so to speak, was as a forensic investigator, and cut my teeth doing homicide investigations, serious crime, suspicious deaths and suicides, and worked in Bali after the bombings. And it just became quite a pivotal moment in both my personal and professional life, heading to Thailand in those days that were followed the tsunami.
Mate, and I remember you saying that you got that call. I think it was on Boxing Day, yeah?
You got that call Boxing Day night.
An amazing story. Thank you for sharing. And I think talking about how memorable that talk was, and I just, I don't want to upset anyone today, and I want to go to all the other great stuff you've done since, but I can still remember the grandmother, I think you said, who came back 5 times, but each time she got happier because she was finding more of a family, I think was the story. Is that one that sticks with you?
Yeah, there's plenty of stories, mate, that of people who recovered loved ones, both living and sadly deceased. And there's stories of a grandfather running from that wall of water, and who got to a tree, climbed the tree, dragged one of his grandchildren up the tree, and there was no celebration at the top, even though they had survived, because while he was running, he had a grandchild in both hands. And when he got to the base of the tree, he knew that he would, if he didn't survive, none of them would. He also knew he couldn't climb the tree, hang on to both of his kids. So he had a decision to make. Which one of his grandkids would he take up the tree, and which one would he let go of? And sadly, that's a story that wasn't in isolation. And I'd work in Japan after the tsunami there in 2011, and it was there were stories that were so remarkably similar of people having to choose who would live and who would die in those incredible times.
Mate, how does that, how do you internalize all of that? Like, I'm guessing you're a pretty strong human and you've seen a lot of grief in your life, but from a psych perspective, so I'm psychology trained, obviously, and I just, did you sort of get your head around that? Did you turn it in? You've obviously turned it into good, and now we'll leverage into that. But does that knock you around for a while, mate, seeing all that stuff?
Oh, it certainly moves the needle. You can't spend days carrying the bodies of dead children in your arms and not be affected. And it's an impact that and the work that we did will live with you forever. And I talk about it, though, the most difficult times I faced was dealing with the relatives of those who died. But the most rewarding times I spent was dealing with the relatives of those who died. And dealing with the bodies was something that I think, like all of us that were there, were forensic practitioners, and through my career, if I wasn't involved in the investigation of death on a weekly basis, it was an unusual week. And the scale of Thailand was something that had never been seen before. Walking into the grounds of a temple where there was 3,500 bodies on the ground in an advanced state of decomposition is just something that no one had ever experienced before. And so that stays with you, that's for sure. I think I'm fortunate that I've got through and can't come out the other side of it as a normal functioning person.
Nice. Great positive spin to put on it, Bainesy. And I remember, here you go. I could just about recite your whole talk from 10 years ago. I remember that the biggest challenge you had was the decomposition, and all of a sudden you put a call out. We need shipping containers. We need air cons in them. We need to chill the bodies down so that they don't decompose further, so that we could go and get DNA out. That's the
Yeah,
sort of level of that's the sort of level of information you share in those talks, and I'm so happy that you're now able to say I'm a fully functioning human,
yeah,
even though I've seen death and too much
yeah,
of it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah.
And mate, let's, for all of our listeners, that's all the grief that we will talk about today. Oh, mate, what have you done since? Talk me through it. You've
Well,
raised like
it's
40 million.
yeah, we've so in the aftermath of Thailand, I met a group of kids who'd all lost their families, and set up a charity to support those kids without parents and without families. And the idea was to raise some money and build them a home. And we did that. We raised money, built the first home, and but I realised the journey had just really begun. It was anything but finished. And here we are this month, October uh, of 2025. We actually celebrate 20 years since I started Hands, and it's a journey that I certainly didn't anticipate. We've, as you say, we've raised 40 or well over 40 million Australian dollars. We've had 56 kids graduate from university with all different types of degrees, and they're now contributing members of society and live throughout the world. And we support at any different time 7 projects all across Thailand, and focused on creating sustainability and running a hospitality training centre that we hope to open early next year, a agricultural learning centre, and bringing sustainability into the income and into employment opportunities for the kids and community. So that's kind of where we're up to. And then to top off the 20-year anniversary of the tsunami, I did a run last year through Thailand, which was a 1,400-kilometre run, 60 k's a day for 26 days, and the equivalent of 33 marathons. Or to put that into perspective, running from Melbourne Airport to Brisbane Airport. But of course, in Thailand, mate, there's the heat and humidity. But it was an outstanding event, and something that I'll never forget, that's for sure.
Talk us through it, Baines, if you could, please, mate. 1,400 k's. That's a big deal. That's a marathon. Did your body break down? Like, I'm guessing your mind broke down.
Well, no, my mind didn't break down at all. The
Right.
body, so it's a marathon and a half each day, and I planned it for 2 years. Trained pretty solidly for starting from a point of zero, because I wasn't a runner, wasn't doing marathons or anything before I made the commitment. And so started training September 2022, and then we left for the run on the 1st of December 2024. And it was an incredible journey. And we certainly faced challenges. Day 14, I got shin splints, which turned into a stress fracture, and I was 12 days out from the finish. And I think it was the strength of the will and the mind that got me up each time to keep running. And I think one of the really big things was the fear of failure. And if you quit something, all that guarantees failure. And going into the run, I was so fearful of letting people down who had supported me. And this wasn't something that there was an option where you could have a DNF and return next year. It wasn't something that was a trial. It wasn't a test. This was the only opportunity to do the run. And I think that I was surprised going into it just how strong my mindset was. And even on the darkest of days, there was never a concern or thought about not finishing or quitting. Even when I was in incredible pain, it was always just a matter of, well, how do I get to the next rest stop? How do I get to the end of the day? And because finishing each day would start at 4:30 of a morning, and depending upon the day, we're finishing in the afternoon, and that gave me the recovery and the chance to rest up and then wake up at 4:30 the next morning and do it all again. Yeah.
Are you going to do it again, Baines?
It's a funny thing. I've written 4 books, and released my latest book, which is called Together We Can. It's in bookstores as of last week, and it looks at the 20-year journey of Hands and looks at the run. And my wife, who's the CEO of the commercial side of Hands, and was just instrumental in getting me through the run. She was we just come back from New Zealand, and she was reading the book over there, and we went to bed, and she was saying, I feel sad, I'm getting to the end of the book. And she said, is that the biggest thing that we will ever do? Does that mean that that's it? And the challenge to do something like that, I think a reason for the huge success was the the goal, the purpose that was behind it. And, you can't take on something like that without having, a rock solid purpose to get you through. And I don't know if that would be there again. The idea of doing it again, or doing something like that has this weird appeal.
Right.
So I don't know, mate. It was the best thing I've ever done in my life. I miss the time on the road every day. I grieve what we had, and I came home from the success of this run, and went into a really dark place really quickly, and which was surprising in a way. And the concern was what place I would have been in if I hadn't have succeeded, if I hadn't have finished the run.
Gotcha.
So would I do it again?
Mm.
On a heart level, you'd go, let's go tomorrow and let's do it all again. A head level, well, it's a big decision to make. It's a commitment of 18 months. It's an expensive exercise
Mm.
to have, and you need a
Mm.
team of people. It's
Mm.
not just me and one or two people. There was 10 of us that were on the road, and navigating your way through a country from the top to the bottom, and getting around Bangkok and the busyness of Bangkok. And, it's a country that I've spent, so much time in over the last 20 years. I'll fly into that country somewhere between 8 and 10 times a year, without doubt. But running it gave me an appreciation of just how much water there is in the land of Thailand, how many riverways and causeways, and how many times you have to cross rivers, and the road network. In some of the cities outlying Bangkok, they're 4-lane highways with flyovers that rival LA. And it's just not
Oh.
something that people see. And we had to, get through the country. So,
Mm.
big answer to
Right.
your question, would you do it again? It depends.
That's right, mate. What I'm spun out about is, and as part of that answer, is that you could do a whole career of forensic investigation, come out as a fully functioning human. You do a 26-day run or whatever it was, and all of a sudden you're down in the dumps because you miss what you had. Mate,
Yeah.
that is a phenomenal thing. That's probably the most mind blowing thing I've heard today. Unbelievable, Baines.
Yeah, no, it was like I was talking with a sports psych in the lead up
Mm.
to the run, and
Mm.
because I've experienced, and the best way to describe it is it's like a
Mm.
case of post-holiday blues. You come home from a,
Mm.
a
Yeah, right.
cracking holiday and you go, where's the meaning in my life? What's the
Hmm.
purpose? Why am I doing this? And
Hmm.
you kick stones for a while. And
Yeah, right.
when I came home from my deployments in Thailand, it was the same kind of, not depression, but just this, really bad mood. And it's
Right.
because you've operated at such a high level. Like I was doing things in Thailand that I'll never do again. That will, hard to imagine ever been repeated again. They had never been done on an international scale or level
Mm.
before, and I was in charge of some of those teams. And so to come home, how do you find that meaning and purpose? And speaking to the sports psych, she said, it's absolutely what professional sports people go through when they retire. Like they know it's coming, but
Mm.
where's the purpose? Where's the structure? Where's the meaning of,
Mm.
how do they feel valued? And where's the get up to training every day and all the commitments you
Mm.
have? And then you come
Mm.
home, and it hit me, like it was day two, we were still in Thailand, and I walked back from breakfast and sat on the bed, and I just, went, what the fuck was that all about? And then I just went into this really dark place for weeks, and there was no celebration of having completed, at the age of 58, a 1,400-kilometer run. I should have been celebrating it, but it was, I was just walked around in this really dark place. And I think the thing that got me out of it a bit was I had to return to Thailand on the 15th of January. So just over 2 weeks later, to lead an 800-kilometre bike ride for the community of Hands. And so we had 50 riders who had all signed up. And for some of them, Anton, this was the biggest thing that they would ever do. And I needed to be present for them. I needed to shift from, that focus of just on me and just running to supporting them. And I think that real shift in mindset and reason for existence helped me come out of that dark place that I was in.
Wow. And quick shout out to Murray Redmond. Murray's a mate of mine from over in the West. He said to say g'day. So
yeah, rode with him in July. I think that was our...
Oh, was that the July one? Right.
Yeah, that was my 4th ride for the year. And so it was, it was good to ride with him and, just another, amazing experience.
Have you done 4 800K rides last year or this year?
We do our 800-kilometre ride is in January. Then all the rest of our corporate rides are 500.
Okay.
And so for whatever reason, they were all stacked in the first half of the year. And next year we've got 6 rides. I'll start in January with an 800, then May with a 500, and then we've got another stack of them towards the end of the year.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
Does Mrs. Baines do those with you, Pete?
She leads a couple. It just depends upon where the clients come from, who needs to be there, and the size of the group. And
Gotcha.
Whilst we love spending time on the bike together and being over there, we've also got a life back here to run. And we both travel for work incessantly, and we've got a farm, we've got dogs, and life's busy here, and we can't always be away together.
Know the feeling, brother. I love it. Just very, very quick shout out to Mrs. Baines too, by the way, who is a triathlete, and we love at the Guinea Group here the sport of triathlon. I'm away next week with a great mate of mine from town here. We're at the World Champs, Baines at Wollongong, representing our country.
Ooh. Ah, fantastic. Yeah.
So that'll be pretty cool. So I would have thought your lovely wife would have been itching to get on the bike and do 500Ks, because that might have been, I don't know if it's good training for her or not, but yeah, I reckon that's something she'd enjoy.
Yeah. No, it's a great experience. Yeah.
Good on you, mate. And let's stay in touch. Let me know when they're open, and I'll if you're happy to have me along, I'd love to come and do that with you one day.
Of course. Yeah.
So, mate, one of the things that I remember you saying one time, and it was probably in that same talk, but I think it was since then in some capacity, you talk about influence a lot, Baines, and you talk about leadership influence. And I remember when you went to Thailand, you said you were the human, you were the forensic scientist or practitioner who was responsible for getting a group of something like 400 forensic gurus from around the world, pulling them together into a team and leading this group of humans to identify 5,395 bodies. And mate, one of the things that you said was, you were talking about money and getting donations, and you said it's easier to get $1 million than it is to get $20. And I thought that's something that really stuck with me. I've still got your little hands across the water book. Remember that the picture book?
Yeah.
Still got that?
Yeah.
But mate, talking about influence, what for you? So the topic of the podcast obviously is find your influence. Where have you developed this influencing skills where you can say to someone, hey, I need $40 million to go and do something pretty special?
Yeah, I think it's, I guess from our perspective, it's always been as a charity that started as a result of an event that occurred 20 years ago is a question of relevance. And, in a hugely competitive market, there's 60,000 charities in Australia. And, I was only reading last night that a survey done by what's called the ACNC, which is Australian Charities Not-for-Profit Commission, was saying that in a survey they did, there was 20% of charities didn't think they would survive this year because of just the difficulty in raising funds and the competitiveness and the economic situation and climate and so forth. And I think for us, it's always been, how do we make people, where do people get the return? And, like investing in charity is discretional spend. As a company, as an individual, it's a discretionary spend. And when the economy is hard, when times are a bit difficult, as a business, as a family, as an individual, you cut down on those things that aren't necessary. And for organisations or a family, you look at things and go, we better tighten the belt a little bit. And the first to go is often charity, the support of charity. And so we've always, ever since the first couple of years of running this organisation, has gone as how do we deliver value so someone wants to stay involved, and it's meeting the needs of people. And I think for us, like we've spoken a little bit about the bike rides, and if you look at why people come and ride, it's what they get out of it. And many people will think that they're coming to ride to support the kids and communities that we have in Thailand and those that we support. And that's true. But what they leave is with this awareness that they've taken so much more from this ride than they've given. This personal growth, this personal achievement, what the learning you take from doing hard things is good. Like as a society, we try to remove points of resistance and hardship, but that's where we grow. And so these rides create this opportunity for people to have this amazing experience. And we have 73% of our riders come back and ride again. We've got people who have been riding with us for over a decade, and if you ask them why they do it, they talk about the community that they're part of. They talk about the personal growth, what they take from it. It's food for their soul. It's that one time throughout the year where you really do something that's just for you, and then when you see the impact it has on the lives of the communities that we're supporting, it's why people return. So when I talk, when your question is about influence, well, I'd suggest it's more about finding what's what it is for people. Like there's Simon Sinek has this saying. It's the challenge of our time is to find a journey worthy of your heart and soul. So rather than me saying I'm influencing people to come and ride, I'm creating an opportunity. And the fundraising they do is for the kids, but they ride for themselves. And so all I see is we provide an opportunity for people to have these experiences rather than trying to influence or persuade them to do something. And it's actually something that we've always stayed away from within our charity. Is we've never leveraged negative situations, or we've never relied upon guilt or anything like that. We only ever talk about positive situations, positive interactions, a positive change that can come about, and people want to be part of that. And I think we create this opportunity, people step into it, and 3/4 of those that step in stay as part of the family.
Mate, there's so much to be said for for positivity, and that mindset, and that because emotions are contagious, Bainesy, and if you show up with a smile, well, this world smiles back at you, right?
Well, mate, it was one of the biggest learnings I had from the run, and how I finished each day. I would finish a 60-kilometre day, and I could come in absolutely empty on every level, physical, spiritual, mental. I was just empty. And that's the best word I'd have is, I'd run through through the heat and all of the rest for 8 to 10 hours a day, and get to the end and I was empty. But how I arrived mattered. If I walked in and there was a team of 10 people waiting for me, if I walked in and I looked like a beaten dog, with my head down, and no matter how I felt physically, if that's how I arrived, that's how the team responded. If I walked in, though, in feeling the same, but lifted my head up and was pumping my fist and celebrating that we'd achieved it, then they celebrated. And, I had this saying that leaders bring the weather, and how you turn up matters. When you walk in the door at home, when you walk into the office, whatever the situation is, how you turn up matters. And and I don't think it's. I was talking at a big conference recently, and I was interviewed about this, and it's not false positivity. It's not
No,
that
that's right.
person who walks in pretending that everything's rainbows and unicorns.
Mm,
There's integrity, but it's also
mm.
knowing that how you turn up matters. And it was such a strong learning for me to come from the run, because I guess the impact of that action
Mm.
was so visible so quickly.
Wow, man. Thanks for sharing, mate. So we sort of went from influence, and you said, no, it's about creating an experience. We sort of came back to it,
Yeah,
how easy it really is to have
yeah,
let's say not influence, let's to impact another human
yeah.
by your mindset, Baines. And see, to me, you knew you were empty, but you've made a choice. It was very decision driven. I'm going to make sure that I smile, or I do whatever it takes to change the mood, so that the next day when I get up in the morning, everyone's still positive and jiving, and that we're woot woot instead of down in the dumps from yesterday.
Yeah, and like we spent a bit of time thinking about communication protocols and on the run as to who could have the hard conversations and that might needed to be had, as to when I might have been in jeopardy of significant health issues or so forth. And there were certain conditions that if they arrive, we would have to invoke these protocols. And if I wasn't eating, if I wasn't drinking, if I wasn't urinating, if I had back-to-back 15-minute kilometers, that meant something was significant and a problem, and how we dealt with that. And no good trying to sort that shit out when it happens. You have to have arrived at all of these scenarios, and then this is the person that will speak to you. And it was equally as important that the team knew what their job was to do. And that might sound pretty obvious, but it wasn't to entertain any complaining. It wasn't to offer me sympathy. It wasn't to suggest that I'd done enough. It was to patch me up and push me back out. To keep you going. Like there was a day 14, where I was running and had shin splints, and never like, it was just incredible pain. And if you've never had them before, I describe them as it's like someone jamming a screwdriver into your shin bone. And the treatment is rest. Well, I had 12 days to run on this leg with the shin splints. And I was running along the beachfront this day, and a beautiful part, and just running on my own. And behind me on the bike was May Thill, this Buddhist monk who rode in her robes for 1,350 kilometers the entire time behind me. And I stopped on this particular day. I'd been running, I was crying, I got snot running out of my nose just because of the pain. And also this concern about what it meant for the entire tour. Was it in jeopardy? And I stopped and leant against this light pole. I was just in real pain, and it was the first time in 14 days I'd stopped. And she jumped off a bike and tipping cold water on my head, and then she rang the support crew and had a conversation. And she said to them, "You have to move lunch," because the crew was about 8 k's up the road waiting for me to arrive to have lunch. And she rang them and said, "You have to move back, come back to Peter. He's in too much pain. He needs you back here." And their response was, "No, he has to get to us." And that was because we had established these communication protocols prior, because my wife's there. And if you're just dealing on an emotion, you think about your person when they need you, when they're in pain, you want to take away the pain. But if they'd come back to me, who knows what had happened. But it was all of this setting this up beforehand so that it gave us the best chance of success. So I don't know where the question went, mate, but that's where the answer went.
Mate, that's off tap. That is a serious, serious process, mate.
Yeah,
It's nearly like it's nearly like, setting up for a public speech, the preparation that's gone into every word, every slide, everything. And really what you're doing, Pete, is you're creating what we call psychological safety. In other words, people need to feel safe to say, no, he's coming to us. Because if people didn't feel safe to say that,
Yeah.
guess what? They're not going to. They might think it,
Yeah.
but they're not going to say it. And
Yeah.
that's you've really empowered people. You've given them a voice. You've given them, authority, really, to have those
Yeah.
conversations, which is really cool.
Yeah, and it was just something that we had to do before we got into those situations. And, thankfully, all of the protocols we established around, potentially removing me off the road if things got ugly, it never happened, and never got to the point where I was forced out, or pushed out of a water stop or anything. It was just, but not considering all of that would have been a bit naive and a bit foolish. And because it was so new, I'd just never done anything like that before. And the preparation in the team, the book is called Together We Can. And on the final day, we said, that was a mantra that I came up with. I don't know where it came from, but on the first morning at 4:30, we got in a huddle, and I said, "Together we can." And then at the end, we went, "Together we did." And the book is this story of when passion and purpose come together, and you've got a group of people who are just so committed to do something and so supported. And I've never been singularly focused on one thing in my life. And my wife, who was there and who ran the whole operation, she talks about never having a greater sense of purpose than those 26 days. And for her, it was presence over perfection. It was, all of these learnings that she took from, she talks about from the moment that she woke up at 4:30 in the morning. The first thing she'd do is stick needles into my feet to drain the fluid out of the blisters. And the last thing she did at 10 o'clock at night was stick needles into my feet to drain the blisters. And in between, it wasn't just a running of the operation for 26 days. It was the keeping the organization running back home. It was the marketing, it was the PR, it was the doing the media interviews. And all I did was think about running. I didn't have to think about, what I'd eat. And it was to the point where, the team never said, "What do you eat?" It wasn't about asking me questions. It was giving me choice. So they presented the food to me. And because, my appetite and what I could eat and what I could tolerate would change by the hour. One of the biggest challenges for me going into this, and I learnt this, I did a simulation run in Thailand where I ran 5 days of 40 Ks. And the thing that I struggled the most was with nutrition. I was running and vomiting and it was just horrible. And I knew that that was my biggest concern going into December. And we changed it, right? And we really had a good focus on nutrition. And I had to eat like every 45 minutes, had to take salt tablets, had to have electrolytes, had to have sun cream. And it was this whole process. And all I had to focus on was getting to the next stop. All I did was run and turn up. They'd open this, what we called the bento box, and I'd look at the food, and it might have been watermelon, it might have been a Vegemite sandwich, it could have been lollies, it could have been, all of these things that there was nothing there by chance. It was all selected because of, what it offered. And, it was high in calories or high in salt. Because, I was drinking between 15 and 20 liters a day. That was what I was taking on during the run. Now that's 15 to 20 kilos I was taking, but I was weighing in of a morning, I was weighing of an afternoon, and each day I was losing between 2.5 to 3 kilos between morning and night. Now, overnight I'd put back on two and a half kilos, or was it a net loss of 7 kilos from the start to the end of the run. But you can't take on 15, 20 kilos a day, lose and still be losing weight, and continue to do that over a long period if you're not
Wow.
putting in the right stuff. And
Yeah,
that's
that's
where
right.
so much of the preparation went, and building that team to support was so important.
Mate. Oh, tap good, Bainesy. What a great story. And so for everyone's benefit, what bookshops is Together We Can in Bainesy? All of them?
Yeah, had a really good launch. It's through Booktopia, Amazon, Dimix. It's in so many bookstores all through the airports, and available online at Hands Across the Water. Or so. But yeah, it was a great book, and
Yeah.
to write. I really enjoyed it. As I said, it's my fourth book, and yeah, it's had some great feedback initially. We finished an audio book that'll be launched in the next week or two, and so yeah, it's a good story, mate. We've got the reflections from the crew who were on the road as
Oh,
well, so
nice.
you get to hear their
Nice.
perspective, and so it was
Nice.
good. Yeah,
Congrats, man. Congrats.
thank you, mate.
Two final questions that I always ask our last podcast, our podcast guests. First one
Yeah,
is leadership mantra, Bainesy. Like you've led some big teams, you've led some crisis events, like world
yeah,
scale crisis events. What's your theory? What's your quote? What's your mantra, if
yeah.
per se?
Yeah, there's lots, because as a speaker, like, it's you're paid to tell these things. I think that the thing that first came to me, though, is when you asked that question, was results, not excuses. And I think that um, it can serve you, really well in coming up with a good idea, a new initiative, or whatever it is you want to do. There'll be people who tell you why you can't do it, why it's someone else's responsibility, why someone
Mm,
else will do it better than you, or it's a crowded space and therefore you shouldn't do what you want to do. But I really think that it's if we focus on the results, let others worry about the excuses, we can achieve some pretty big things. And I read something, or heard something yesterday, which I thought was just brilliant, and it was not letting age define our dreams. And as we start to move on, I made this commitment to do a 1,400-kilometer run at the age of 56. At the age of 58, I finished a 1,400-kilometer run, and I love that concept of just really, having a go.
mate, best ever. There's Pooch is getting excited too.
Yeah,
Okay. What sort of dogs you got, Bainesy?
two Springer Spaniels, and they're here
Right.
because the post office has
Oh,
just
right.
delivered a
Posties.
parcel. But don't worry, I don't need to
Nice.
sign, so all good.
Nice work. Hey, very quick one. If you or me, if you wanted to, like, I don't know that I'll ever replicate, the quality of this conversation. Who would you recommend? I always ask people, who's my next podcast guest, according to Peter Baines?
Oh, what actually comes up is, and this is a
Yeah.
really selfish thing, is
Uh,
I spoke a couple of weeks ago, and
mm,
we were on a work trip in Europe where I was speaking at a conference, and
mm,
and the feedback was we wanted to hear more about the back end. And the next conference, we did CT, my wife, who was
mm,
part of this whole run. She was then interviewed about the learnings that she took about supporting someone through the run. And, her journey, her observations, and her learnings were so different than mine, and what
mm,
she did was, and I loved this aspect of that. Each day she ran 1 kilometer more than the previous day. So on day one, she ran the first kilometer with us, then jumped in the van. Day two, she ran two. Day three, she ran three. So she ended up running 350 kilometers over the entire month. And then for the last week, she's back-to-back half marathons, and then getting in the van to run the whole thing. And what I loved was that she was able, amongst all that was going on, was to maintain and to keep the time to do something that was really important to her. And, at a conference we were at in Melbourne a few weeks ago, she was interviewed on stage about her learnings. And it was just, I think we often hear from the person that's done big things, but seldom do we get to hear what went on behind. So
I love it. Would you mind connecting me with the amazing, was
Absolutely,
it CT
mate.
you said your wife is?
CT, yeah.
That's cool. Baines, are you based in Melbourne by any chance?
No, Sydney.
Sydney, you are Sydney. Cool,
Well,
cool.
Terrigal.
Terrigal. I was going to say,
it
looks a bit bushy in the background there, mate. Very nice.
No, it's just a cloudy day. Normally, it's the ocean behind us, and we can actually see the whales as they migrate up and down the coast from our office, and it's beautiful. But that's where we are today. It's just a cloudy day, mate.
Half your luck, mate. Half your luck. Mate, amazing. Please connect me with the amazing Mrs. Baines. We'll probably talk some triathlon too when we're talking, and and I'll let you know when this comes out. Thanks heaps, really, really lovely conversation, man.
Good on you, mate. All the best. See you, Anton. Bye, buddy.
See you, bro. Thanks for listening. We just had an amazing guest on to another amazing podcast of Find Your Influence. My name's Anton Guinea, and for 20 years I have been sitting, working with, training, coaching and consulting leaders at all levels of organizations. I have coached Gen Z leaders right through to baby boomer leaders. I've done 1,500 one-on-one leadership coaching sessions. My mission on this planet is to help leaders create high-performing and psychologically safe teams. If you want to upgrade your leadership, upskill your teams, or upskill your leadership, please reach out. You can get me at anton@theguineagroup.com.au. Please tune into our next episode. These podcast chats are amazing. The value and the information that you get will help you be more influential and help you be a better leader.